tutorial of rib hinge. The thread of thought that I want you to carry with you throughout this practice is that core work is spinal work. We're thinking through the spine. The belly automatically wakes up according to how we're opening and floating through the spine. So for now, I don't want you to think of rib hinge as a core exercise. I want you to think of it as a spinal exercise. How are we finding gravity and letting the spine relax into gravity so that we create the deep internal float of the head and the rib cage to move up. In Pilates, we're thinking gravity work, not grunt work. Okay, so here's how you're going to set yourself up. I'm not going to deeply go into the lower core today. And what I mean by that is how the feet connect to the belly. I'm going to mainly focus on the action of what is happening up here. But the way you need to set yourself up right now is you need to have a little something in between your legs, okay? Right? And then your feet being sits bone distance, right? So if you were to reach under your behind, there you go, you can sort of feel those bones under there, and you want your legs aligned with those sits bones, okay? With the ball helping you get what we call the energetic midline, okay? Then, to top it off, we're going to have those toes lifted. So now, we're grounded through our lower core support right now. And that's all you really need to focus on as far as that goes at this moment, and how it's going to give you support to have the top of your body moving, right? Lower body grounds so that the top of the body, spine, can float, okay? So, Heather, go ahead and show us a good advanced rib hinge. Okay? So you notice how she lengthened through the back of her head. Really nice, good. And that allows her rib cage to soften down, right? So you see her getting very heavy into the mat. It doesn't look like she's exerting a lot of force and energy right now. And that is very important to take note of. Really nice, good. And go ahead and lay back. Great. So now, Heather, let's have a good time and show how a beginner can often go into their rib hinge. They're pulling forward, they're pumping really hard, their neck cocks back. Good, you're reaching forward, you're running out of breath, right? Right, you're just not sure how to organize the body, and there's just a sense of overworking. And go ahead and lie down, because that doesn't feel good, and Heather doesn't like that, so we won't keep her there very long, right? So now we're going to make this a pleasant experience. Okay, so as many of you know that have gone into any rib hinge or done crunches, you're typically in the front of your neck, right? We've got to get your head in relationship to your spine. That's number one. So, Heather, go ahead and interlace your fingers, okay? And now, pull your fingers apart, right? And what that's going to do is that's going to give her base support through here. That is going to connect her shoulder girdle down into her body, okay? Then, she's going to float her arms behind her head. Right, good. So now, that support that she just got here is now going to be what's holding her head up. That ultimately is going to play a huge role in what has her able to lift her head without being in her neck, because she's going to be supported down through her shoulder blade to belly and back up from her foot to inner thigh belly, okay? So I'm going to place my hand behind her head as well, okay? So she's going to lift her head up so I can put my hand. You see my hand, okay? So Heather, get your head really heavy in your hands. You see how I'm kind of like bouncing her a little bit? Remember how I said gravity, we're doing gravity work, not grunt work? Well, we've got to find gravity, your body weight, feeling your body weight. There's a magic to finding the weight of the head in allowing it to begin to relate to the rest of the body. So take a moment, and you can even stop the video for a moment if you need to, and let your head be heavy in your hands. Yes, letting the throat soften. Really nice, beautiful, good, nice. And then lay back down and rest. Okay. The other main thing that is going to support her in this rib hinge is her breath. Okay? In Pilates, we breathe into the back of the body, right? It opens up the spine and it's going to create space. We don't breathe into the front of the chest, right? If we breathe into the front of the chest like Heather's going to do, it's actually going to pull her out of her rib hinge. You can't rib hinge, right, if your chest is being breathed upwards, right? And there's nothing wrong with breathing your chest upwards overall in the body. But right now, for this movement, we want a sense of softness through the front of the body so that it can curl into a rib hinge, all right? The exhale is I call it the noisy fog of mirror. It sounds like this. And then as she does this, she doesn't even need to think about pulling in her belly. She can just take that out of her list of things to do with her body. No more pulling in the belly, no more pulling the navel to the spine. You can hear she's just being very present with that fog of mirror exhale. Okay? I won't get too complicated into anatomy because I don't want your brains to explode, but basically the diaphragm works synergistically with the belly. Okay? And that fog of mirror breath starts to wake up and energize your deep, deep abdominals. Okay? So we have the inhale that's gently moving into the back, right? That's kind of like a balloon inside of her. Then she has that fog of mirror, and she's creating her breath at her own metronome. Okay? So how does that bring her into rib hinge? Well, what's going to happen is on her inhale, she's going to have her hands help her back of her neck get long as her back widens and her eyes move downwards. On the exhale, that deep shoulder blade to belly, right, connecting to her head, is going to float up her heavy head that we've already sort of played with. We've already played with the weight of the head. Now we're bringing that exploration into something a little bit more structured. So here, even though she's in a still pose, there is lots of energetics moving through her body, right? She is continually creating that energy from her hands, right? Like they're going to pull apart, right? Waking up the back line. That inhale is continually opening up her back, right? Remember how I said your core work is your spine work, okay? Meanwhile, that exhale, right? Your feet gently pressing down on that exhale, sending energy up your energetic midline, right? So now what is happening is she's got energetics going down into gravity, and she has energetics going back up, right? And her body is in that interplay of expansion and opposition, not unlike a jellyfish moving through the ocean, right? The focus is soft. It's not hardcore, like we've got to get somewhere fast. We have nowhere to get to fast in Pilates, in your fundamentals. Really nice. And then there, she's got those connections meeting in the middle. She's noticed that her belly just suddenly is waking up without pulling, tucking, squeezing, none of those things that are general unpleasantries in the body. And then she's going to take one arm down and away. Really good. And then she gets to practice a pumping action. And this is where a rib hinge moves into the first movement in the mat sequence called hundreds. Really nice. So what I'm about to show you, it's optional to move into right now. I'm going to be looking at moving into more an intermediate hundreds in another video. This video really was to set up your rib hinge, but I am going to show you where it goes. Really nice. So now she's going to take her other arm away as well. Really nice. And I'm just using a little hands-on assistance like I do in a lot of most of my private sessions, where my hand begins to talk to her in ways that words just can't, right? Helping her body achieve things, right, that it just can't quite access yet on its own, right? So now we're going to take the legs on the next exhale and we're going to float them over the hips. Notice how she didn't stop lifting her toes, right? The thigh bone grounding into the hip socket. Good. We're moving closer and closer to an intermediate hundreds, right? With her ability to support her own head and support her own legs within a very whole body experience. Good. Now, let's start to lift the lower leg up to the ceiling, pulling the heels out of the back of the leg, waking up that energetic midline that energizes up, out, through her head. And that is rib hinge moved into hundreds. The downward dog of yoga, the plie of ballet. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.